Welcome to Yarns to Spin, the podcast where every story tells a song. Here you will find an eclectic collection of unusual stories, strange happenings, tall tales, folklore, and intriguing Americana. What is better than hearing a good story? Listening to the song that goes along with it. Yarns to Spin presents the Bigfoot Campfire Song. The man was staring in disbelief, and what he saw chilled him to the bone. He stood motionless. The first scream that he heard from the creature was terrifying, but it was the second scream from a different direction that finally jarred his senses and set him in motion. It was then he started running with only one thought in mind: to put as much distance as he could between himself and the ape-like creature he had just witnessed. This begins one man's story of an encounter with Bigfoot. The best person to recount that episode would be the man that was there. This is his story in his own words.
It was late in April, a number of years ago. I had been living in Washington State for a while and was spending most weekends exploring the Cascade Mountains just east of the Seattle area. On this weekend, I was testing out a new tent I had purchased from REI in anticipation of future hiking trips into the high country. I woke before sunrise on that cold morning, quite a bit of snow still on the ground where I was camped along the south fork of the Stillaguamish River. Although I couldn't see it through the heavy timber along the river bottom, I knew that the dramatic north face of Big Four Mountain was just around a bend in the river, so I planned to follow an abandoned logging road up the hillside across the river and see if I could get a view. At the time, there had been some salvage logging in the area, and a temporary bridge had been built across the river to allow truck access. I crossed the bridge and followed the gravel road as it climbed up the hill, reaching the end in a little over half a mile. As I stood at the end of the gravel, disappointed that I had no view of Big Four, I heard an unnerving sound, almost like a scream and a growl mixed. Hard to describe since it sounded like nothing I'd ever heard before. Frozen in my tracks, I looked uphill into the woods at the end of the road, and in a moment saw movement. Something, I didn't know what, moved into view. I don't think I was breathing as I looked into the trees and saw a huge, hairy creature standing alongside a tree, looking back at me. Maybe 100 yards, maybe 100 feet, I couldn't tell, and I don't recall thinking about the distance. All I knew was something big and scary was looking at me. At that moment, I heard another sound below me. The same sound. Another one? Terrified, I backed away from the end of the road, never taking my eyes off the creature until I finally turned and, trying not to run, quickly headed back down the road. A couple more sounds, one above from the thing I saw and what felt like a response below, and then I was around the bend in the road and out of sight of whatever it was. At that point, I was running. I was nearly back to the bridge and to my tent before it occurred to me that hanging around my neck was a camera. It was some months later, while browsing through the shelves at a library in Oak Harbor, that I stumbled across a thin paperback book by a newspaper reporter from Vancouver, British Columbia. That was when I finally knew what I had seen: Sasquatch.
The Indians tell a story and it'll chill you to the bone. They say a creature walks in the wilderness and you shouldn't be there alone. They call it Sasquatch. Bigfoot is another name. Some say there's nothing out there, but the story remains. Two men went riding down a long Bluff Creek trail. They were looking for its tracks and the proof it would tell. Something spooked the horses and they swore it wasn't a lie. When they turned around, a hairy ape-like man was staring them in the eye. One man had a camera and the rest is history. But what Patterson filmed that day is still a mystery. And if you hear a sound somewhere in the night, throw another log on the campfire and keep it burning bright. And the naysayers will say that there's nothing to dispute. That sound you heard is nothing more than a man in a monkey suit. So is Bigfoot just folklore passed down through the years, or just another campfire song meant to stoke our oldest fears? So skeptic or believer, in the woods, dark and deep, keep your fires burning and try not to fall asleep. And if you hear a sound somewhere in the night, throw another log on the campfire and keep it burning bright. And the naysayers will say that there's nothing to dispute. That sound you heard is nothing more than a man in a monkey suit. Just a man in a monkey suit. It's just a man in a monkey suit. It's just a man in a monkey.
The song you just heard, in part, tells how the famous Patterson Bigfoot film came about. It was this film that started the Bigfoot debate. The film was shot in 1967. Frame 352 of that film depicts, in 59.9 seconds, what appears to be a female hairy ape-like creature. It is walking upright and glancing back toward the man with the camera. The naysayers wasted no time in vociferously proclaiming, "It's just a man in a monkey suit." Let's take a short look backwards into the history of Bigfoot, and let's see at the ending of this story which way you might lean. Are you a skeptic or are you a believer? Historically, Native North Americans, ranging from the Pacific Northwest to the Appalachian Mountains, told the stories of a strange creature that roamed the wilderness. Bigfoot drawings and tribal stories became a large part of Native American folklore. Each tribe had their own Bigfoot names, and these stories were passed down through generations. Sasquatch was one such name and means wild man. Early settlers soon started telling their own stories of witnessing this mystical creature. Lumberjacks, miners, and explorers told harrowing tales of meeting with the hairy ape-like wild man. One interesting story was that Davy Crockett of Alamo fame encountered a Bigfoot. He wrote a letter to his brother-in-law recounting how he had come across a large ape-like man while traveling in Texas. As time went on, more and more sightings of these creatures were recorded. In Northern California, loggers often discovered giant footprints in the ground. These mysterious footprints led to the name Bigfoot, referencing the size, which was much larger than a normal man. By the 1950s, Bigfoot stories started to appear in articles, newspapers, and on TV. The popular TV show, Truth or Consequence, even offered a $1,000 reward to anyone who could prove the existence of such a creature. The Bigfoot stories continued to fascinate people. And in October of 1967, two men, Roger Patterson and Bob Gimlin, were looking for Bigfoot tracks near Bluff Creek, California. And it was there the Patterson film was taken. This was the proof that many Bigfoot believers were looking for. Bob Gimlin swears that what he saw was real, and a Hollywood special effects man said it would be near impossible to have faked that film. However, the skeptics continued with the man in a monkey suit as an explanation. Bigfoot is undoubtedly one of the most talked about legends in the nation. But if it's real, what is it? Some say it could be the missing link in evolution. Others believe it could be an interdimensional entity that walks between parallel worlds. Some UFO enthusiasts make the case that the creatures are otherworldly beings. Bigfoot might indeed be campfire folklore, but a poll taken in 2020 shows that about 1 in 10 Americans believe it's real. Laws have been passed regarding harming or killing a Bigfoot, and that it should be a protected species. So, what side do you fall on? Skeptic or believer? Either way, if you are ever in the woods, dark and deep, it wouldn't hurt to throw another log on the campfire, and as the song says, try not to fall asleep.